Hearing a voice can change everything. So AT&T wants everyone to gift their voice to loved ones this holiday season because that conversation is a chance to say something they'll hear forever. AT&T. Connecting changes everything. This is the 10% Happier Podcast. I'm Dan Harris. Hey, everybody. Today we're going to talk about how to work with worry, especially if you're in the middle of that special hell of waiting for a medical diagnosis, what to do when gratitude doesn't work or when it backfires or makes you feel worse, how to deal with that jangly, never enough feeling of wanting that can come over you, especially during the holidays, how to disentangle from your inner critic, and much more. My guest today is Dr. Christiane Wolf, who is a physician, a longtime Dharma teacher, and an ultramarathoner. So she's got a varied resume. What you're about to hear is a recording of one of our weekly live sessions that we do over on danharris.com. These sessions are normally for our paying subscribers, but we're dropping this one for free. The session you're about to hear was the first time we ever did this on Zoom after many months on Substack. So you'll hear us figuring out some things on the fly. Thank you for your patience on that score. We always start these things with a short guided meditation, but we clip that out so you can just get right to the Q&A with me and Christiane. Just to say before we dive in, you can come to all of our weekly live meditation and Q&A sessions if you sign up for my new app, which is called 10% with Dan Harris. You can sign up at danharris.com. We do these sessions every Tuesday at 4 Eastern. We won't be doing our normal 4 o'clock Tuesday session on Tuesday, December 30th because of the holidays, but I'll be doing 3 of them the following week when we launch our New Year's Meditation Challenge with Joseph Goldstein. Those will be available for anybody. That meditation challenge, by the way, is free. If you sign up now over at danharris.com, you can get a free 30-day trial, which will include the New Year's Meditation Challenge. So you should go sign up. All right, we'll dive in with Christiane Wolf right after this. You know, AT&T believes hearing a voice can change everything. It's why we love a good podcast or we save voicemails from loved ones because we appreciate the sound of a familiar voice. When I need a pick-me-up, I call my friend Willie. Willie and I have known each other for nearly 25 years. He's just an incredibly close friend, and I laugh my you-know-what off every time we talk. That's my guy. AT&T wants everyone to share their voice over the holidays. So send a voice note, leave a voicemail, call someone, because that conversation is a chance to say something they will hear forever. Happy holidays from AT&T. Connecting changes everything. I've got a big trip coming up. I'm very excited about this. My family and I are flying to Washington to go to a Washington Commanders football game. As you may have heard me mention before, my beloved brother-in-law, Jack, is a pro scout for the Commanders. Love Jack, love the Commanders. Love their head coach who was on this show not long ago. Anyway, I'm excited about this trip, and many of us are heading into a period of time when we're all taking vacation. It's the holiday season, and I've got an idea for you. While you're away, you could use that as an opportunity to host your home on Airbnb. I love staying in welcoming homes that I book on Airbnb, and it got me thinking my home could do the same for somebody else. I put so much work into this house. My wife put most of the work in, but we put a lot of time and energy into this place. So why not use it as a spot to help other people feel comfortable while they are away from home? And think about it. If you host your home on Airbnb while you're traveling, it's a great way to offset some of the costs of your own trip. You get paid for taking a vacation. And the extra income you make can be put toward an upcoming trip, a splurge you've been eyeing, home improvement projects. So if you've got some holiday travel or any other travel coming up, hosting is a pretty cool and unique way to make some of your money back. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
When we're practicing something like gratitude, and it can also come up when we're practicing loving kindness or when we're practicing joy or when we're practicing compassion, is to remember that we cannot make ourselves feel that. Yeah, so sometimes we come to a class and then I'm very happy then like you're actually had a shift in mood. But for some people, you won't have a shift in mood. Yeah. And then it can be something that kind of confirms. Yeah. It confirms maybe this, I'm having a shitty day or there's something wrong with me. Yeah. And so I just want to acknowledge that. So what we're practicing with actually is we're practicing with our intention. Yeah. So our intention is to turn towards gratitude or appreciation. And then if we're lucky, we feel something and it can be really nice and beautiful. But if we don't feel that, it doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. Yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and what you were saying, Christiana, about the fact that you don't need to feel any kind of way, like to me, that's what allowed me to, one of the things that allowed me to do loving kindness practice is that the point is not to force some sort of feeling. The point is to do the exercise and have some confidence based on 2,600 years of contemplative history that over time it will bear fruit. How does that land for you, Christiana?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So for me, when I started loving kindness practice, I just did it because the teachers that I trusted told me to do it. And so they told me to do some loving kindness practice every other day. And I was just sitting there and repeating the phrases, may I be happy, may you be happy. And I think like, what a waste of time. Yeah. And I couldn't feel anything, couldn't connect with it at all. Like theoretically, maybe it made sense. But I really know that over time that practice softened me a lot. And it made it so like we're often saying with a loving kindness practice is like we are opening a door or we're opening a window. And we keep doing that repeatedly. Yeah. And so it's not up to us whether actually like loving kindness or compassion will walk in, but it is easier when the door is open. But that's been definitely my experience.
There is a comment here from Robin that I want to address, and then I want to hear what you have to say, Christiana. Robin says, the gratitude practice is lovely, but it also brings up sadness, maybe because I'm also worried about so many of the people and things I'm grateful for. It's quite moving for me. And I don't, what I'm about to say is not necessarily directed at Robin's comment. Like, I don't know what's in Robin's mind fully, but right before this session, I was recording a podcast that we'll post in a couple of weeks. It was a great podcast with these two Buddhist monks, young American Buddhist monks who have a community in Seattle. And one of the things one of the monks said that I thought was really cool was that there is this feeling many of us have that the best way to honor the suffering in the world is to be miserable.
Yes.
But that isn't helping anybody. That's not serving the people you're trying to help. I don't say that as a critique of what Robin's bringing up here.
Yeah.
I feel that too when I'm doing gratitude or loving kindness, or often for my son, I'll think of may you be healthy and then start worrying about whether he's going to be unhealthy at some point. So I said a lot there, not all of it totally coherent, Christiana, but any thoughts on?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's really important. And I just actually had that discussion with like at another meditation group I was teaching. And the question that came up for me was the instructions were, so when you notice your mind going into a story, can you just drop it? Can you put it in a parking lot? Can you say, thank you, not now? As a training to say, like, I'm paying attention to this right now. I've chosen to pay attention to this right now. Yeah. And just as like when I do focused work and like, I don't know, coworker walks in and I say, can you hold that? I'll get back to you. Yeah. So it's not aversive. I'm not trying to suppress it or something. I'm just saying not right now. And then we had that discussion and somebody said, yeah, I'm so worried about one of my children. So is that okay? Or like, what do I do when that comes up in a meditation? And I basically said, well, do you have to worry about your child right now in the meditation? And then we had this kind of interesting discussion. I wonder how that lands with people here, because basically what it came down to that he said, because there's something going on with my child, therefore I need to worry because that's what parents do, right? And then we were just playing with this idea is, yeah, but do you have to do that right now? And is that helping your child if you worry right now? Back to your question, Dan, right? Or like what you had the discussions with the monks. And so I think what we can learn with this, and of course, we have to be careful that we not use that as like a spiritual bypass, but to see, is that really helpful right now? Is that helpful if I worry about the people right now? Or is that helpful if I really suffer with you in the same way that you're suffering? Yeah. So, like when people are in our life, and somebody else shared in the chat box about her husband being diagnosed with like an advanced illness. And so then the question often, is that helpful? And of course we suffer. So like this is the tricky part. So we do this, but sometimes so what we are learning with these practices is we see what our nervous system does pre-programmed in a way, and then asking the question, and is that helpful? And is there something else I can do about this? Or what would be more helpful? Yeah. And then we can go in all different kinds of directions with this that are not about avoiding feeling hard feelings.
There's a good question here from Maria in the chat. Is worry ever helpful?
That's a really good question. I would say barely ever, honestly. Yeah. So I think it is really helpful, like to alert us to, I really care about that person, therefore I worry. Or it alerts me to, is there an actionable item right now? Is there something I need to do? Yeah. But if there's not, I don't think there's any benefit in worrying. I'm provoking you guys a little bit. You notice that, right? But just for something like, I don't know, some food for thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, let me get to at least one of the questions that were submitted in advance, because this one is timely. So many of the questions we can save and ask later, but this one is really timely. It's from Nikki. Hi, with Black Friday coming up, I would love to hear more about your suggestions for dealing with wanting. I know it is part culture / consumerism and likely part anxiety that leaves us wanting all the things. I have surfed the urge. I've welcomed it to the party, but it seems to keep showing up this time of year. Thank you.
Great question. Yes, very timely. And so to look into that question, is there the assumption that worry will go away if I do all the right things? Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting question. Or is that just, well, we're human beings, therefore wanting will keep arising? And is that a problem? Yeah. So that's a general answer to that question. And then does it show up more this time of year? Absolutely. And it is almost like we're being triggered into wanting like crazy. Like wherever you look right now, it's like Black Friday sales and here and this and that. So it is almost like we're being fed a drug. And it's really hard to avoid that. And so I think really important to think about is in general, what is your relationship to wanting and to stuff at this point? And I was reminded then you had a nice podcast with Michael Easter, I think last year. Yeah. And Michael Easter is the author of, is that the Scarcity Mind? I think that's the name of the book.
Scarcity Mind, yeah.
Scarcity Mind, yeah. And I love his saying it. He says like, buy gear, not stuff. Yeah. So really to look into, is that what you're about to buy really something you need and you will use for the next 10, 20 years? Or is that just something that is just like the slot machine in a casino that like you're being played? And I don't like being played. So that's like something is really, I get actually mad if I feel like I'm being manipulated into something. Yeah. And that is for me a way to just go like, wait, what's happening right now? Yeah.
Let me go back to worrying for a second, because there's another question here from DV. How do you let go of worrying when you're waiting for a health diagnosis?
Yeah, great question. So again, like we want to work around worry with a lot of kindness, right? So we're hardwired to worry. Nothing wrong, it will come up. It is just like once I'm in it, do I feed it or am I training myself to pivot into not worrying? Yeah. And so when you're waiting for a health diagnosis, of course, your mind will worry. And then can you use your practice skills to notice that and you can name it, right? We often say the name it to tame it. and say, like, oh, worry mind. And then you direct it to something in the present moment in your senses. Yeah. So you could look around the room, you could orient to sounds, you could feel your breath, and keep repeating that. And then also just self-compassion, right? So self-compassion says, yeah, this is really hard to wait for a diagnosis. And yes, this is what it feels like for everybody who's waiting for a diagnosis to be so worried and not knowing what will be the outcome.
That's a terrible feeling. I've been there.
It is, for sure.
You know, AT&T believes hearing a voice can change everything. And if you love podcasts, you get that. The power of hearing somebody speak is unmatched. It's why we save those voicemails from our loved ones. They mean something. For me, when I need a one-on-one holiday boost, I know who to call. My friend Joseph Goldstein, my meditation teacher. This is a guy who is just, every time I got a problem, I can call him up and he talks me off the ledge and gives me practical and profound advice. AT&T knows the holidays are the perfect time to do just that. Share your voice. If it's been a while since you've called somebody who matters, now is the time, because it's more than just a conversation. It's a chance to say something they will hear forever. So spread a little love with a call this season. Happy holidays from AT&T. Connecting changes everything. Another question from the chat here. It comes from Desiree, who I can see. I can actually see Desiree, who's sitting with her friend, partner, conjoined twins, since they're wearing the same clothing. So in my screen, they seem like they're conjoined. Desiree asks, can you talk about how to work with the inner critic when it wants to hold you hostage and not allow you to feel gratitude/joy? Like you didn't earn it, or should fix various problems, especially with making sure everybody else is okay first before allowing yourself to enjoy. Thanks so much.
That's an important question. And we have a related question that came in that somebody submitted before about how do we distinguish between a thought or just a story worry or something like that, and where do we actually address it on a psychological level? Yeah. And then I wonder if you want to also read that question, and then I can see if I can address those both together.
Is the question from Jim Franco?
I think so, yeah. About IFS, yes.
By the way, Desiree says that the dude in her little square here is her partner, Wes. What's up, Wes? Jim Franco asks, I'd like to hear more about the intersection between mindfulness practice, where you label your thoughts and then come back to the breath, and the recognition that for me, some thoughts are more than just thoughts, but actually shadow or protector parts of myself that need to be acknowledged and met with kindness, curiosity, and compassion. I practice internal family systems, or IFS, which is a kind of therapy, and find that both labeling thoughts as thoughts and working with thought parts are beneficial to my practice. If I'm not mindful of the psychological healing that needs to occur, I'm at risk of spiritually bypassing. I've heard this two-pronged approach referred to by the Buddhist psychologist Bruce Tift as the being/fruitional approach and the becoming/developmental approach. Or, as I've heard in a quote from the Zen teacher Shunryo Suzuki Roshi, we're all perfect and we can also use a little work. I would appreciate hearing your thoughts.
Yeah. And I see, Desiree, like you do IFS, so you're familiar with that. IFS, I'm also trained in IFS, is internal family systems. And I find that really helpful in conjunction with mindfulness. It could be you feel anxious. So does it make a difference to you? A little experiment here. If you say to yourself, I'm anxious, I'm super anxious. Notice how that lands. And then would that land differently if you would say, I have a part that feels really anxious right now? I have a part that feels really anxious. And then my first question would be, does that make sense that you have a part that feels really anxious right now? Yeah. So I just wonder how that lands for people. Can you feel a difference between those two?
I don't think you were even asking me particularly.
Yeah, please. No, Dan, please. Yes.
When you put it on a part, it feels less blot out the sun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And this actually is totally in alignment with mindfulness or Buddhist teachings. It's like we don't take it as personally. We don't think this is who we are. Yeah. When I say I am anxious, blocks out the sun, exactly, right? This is who I am, always been, always will be, hopeless kind of thing. And if I say I have a part, very often there's immediately a sense of more openness or curiosity or like, yeah, of course I have a part. Like that makes total sense. So we have understanding and we have a uncoupling from being completely merged with that part. Yeah. So I very often, like with emotional work, it is very helpful to just use that. Yeah. And then with the inner critic, right? So Desiree, back to your question also, and I'm sure you've already asked yourself that question, does that make sense that you have an inner critic part? Makes sense. I see you not. Yes. Okay. And then the question is, one approach of IFS is that all parts have a really good intention for you. Yeah. And then we need to separate the intention and the method. Yeah. Because you might be on the receiving end of that part yelling at you and calling you names. So that doesn't land well in my system at all. But if you're actually sometimes sit down with that part, get to know it, right? To see what does that part actually want from you, for you. Yeah. So I just wonder also, like for Desiree and other people here, do you have a sense of what that part, or give it away, how is the part trying to keep you safe? Yeah. Or can you see how the part is trying to keep you safe? Very often. So with the inner critic, what happens is that we have learned if we're really hard on ourselves, yeah, or we're using the words that have been used towards us, it keeps us in line and therefore safe. Yeah. And so what we're doing here is we're reframing our experience in a more psychological way, which can, when there's more understanding or like even like a softening, like, oh, yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah. How my inner perfectionist or how my inner critic actually is trying to keep me safe, my inner people pleaser or whatever that is. And then we can use mindfulness to integrate that. And then often the pressure of those parts, they decrease. So back to that question that was sent in, because I totally believe, and I've seen that we can use mindfulness skills to bypass actually addressing hurt parts or hurt younger aspects in ourselves. So that's a long answer, and I can talk for the next couple of hours or days probably on the topic, but I'll just pause here.
Let's do one last question here and just stay on this point. And I'll read you a comment here from Sylvia Davidson, who is just expressing some, not necessarily skepticism about what you're saying, but about her ability to apply it for herself. She writes, sigh, I can see / intellectualize and tell myself that the second option is creating distance. In other words, that when I say that there's a part of me that's anxious rather than I am anxious. But it's just words for me. At the emotional level, I can't say that I feel that distance.
Yeah, so that is very common. So especially as we start with that work, because the idea is that those parts are younger aspects of ourselves who have learned to drive the minivan, and they shouldn't. So the question always is, who is driving the minivan right now? And what we want is our loving adult self to drive the minivan, and everybody in the back seat give their opinions and inputs, right? We really want to listen to them, but over time, we don't want them to drive the minivan anymore. But we also know that for many of us growing up, there was nobody driving the minivan. So it was just us who were able to do it. And we had to do it, and we did that as best as we could. And so there's often this habitual taking over, and then it feels like there is no loving, mature adult here. And that is actually part of the healing work that we can do with IFS. So totally normal what you're describing, Sylvia. Yeah.
Christiana, thank you very much for being Teacher of the Month here for
Thank you.
November. You've done great work. Really appreciate it. And thanks for doing this session with us today.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out here. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you who are celebrating. Wonderful to see you. And keep practicing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for being part of this. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back next Tuesday with, as mentioned, our December Teacher of the Month, Jeff Warren. Yeah, lots of cool stuff cooking in 10% Universe. So thanks for being part of it. Thank you again to Christiana, and see you next week.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Big thank you to Christiana. Don't forget to sign up for the new app, 10% with Dan Harris. You can sign up over at danharris.com. There's a free 30-day trial if you want to try before you buy. If you sign up for the free trial, that will cover our New Year's meditation challenge. So you'll get that for free. The challenge starts on the 5th and runs for 7 days, and will feature a series of progressive guided meditations led by Joseph Goldstein. It's going to be really cool. Finally, a big thank you to everybody who worked so hard on this show. Our producers are Tara Anderson and Eleanor Vasily. Our recording and engineering is handled by the great folks over at Pod People. Lauren Smith is our managing producer. Marissa Schneiderman is our senior producer. DJ Kashmir is our executive producer. And Nick Thorburn of the band Islands wrote our theme.